Okay, I am doing my presentation on Kara Walker. So, Kara Walker, a brief history. She was born in Stockton, California in 1969, but she grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, where she also then attended college and received her Bachelor of Fine Arts. And then soon after her BFA, she relocated to Rhode Island, where she went to the Rhode Island School of Design, where she received her MFA. So she got her master's in Rhode Island, and then shortly after that, relocated again to New York. And she currently works and lives in New York, where she has her studio and has done a majority of her exhibitions. And she has won many awards. A notable achievement is the MacArthur Foundation Achievement Award for her work and exploration on race, gender, and Black history, all through her large-scale paper silhouette style, which we will talk about more. So this is a work of hers called My Compliment, My Enemy, My Oppressor, My Love. And what I really enjoyed about her work, and this one as an example, is that at first glance you are not exactly sure what kind of scene you are looking at, especially if you have never heard of her art before. But the closer you get and more time you spend analyzing it, you begin to notice how intense and frightening it can be. And she wants to be completely authentic. She doesn't hold anything back. Her work can be quite jarring and even difficult to look at sometimes because of how candid and truthful she is with her art. And in this specific exhibition, she is depicting unsettling imagery addressing the history of slavery and racial stereotypes. So Kara Walker employs innovative techniques in her art, particularly through her use of silhouettes, and they're very recognizable to her, and these striking silhouettes confront uncomfortable truths about race and history, and silhouettes themselves strip away the individual identities of each cutout, which kind of pays homage to that same idea where people, Black Americans throughout history, have kind of been stripped of their identities, and it adds, her material and her techniques add to her subject matter and what she's trying to say. And diving into some of her notable 3D works, this one is a large-scale installation, and it touches on the history of sugar production and related to slavery and colonialism. And the sculpture itself is actually made of sugar, which again serves as that powerful metaphor for exploitation of slaves in the sugar industry. And the installation is actually set within the old Domino sugar factory in Brooklyn, which tie the work to its context and its dark history even further. So she really thought this through in the material, the location, the subject matter, everything. And another 3D work, while we're on the subject, is this one, the Fons Americanus. And it's inspired by classic fountain designs of the Victorian era, but it diverts itself by using narratives about race and African American experiences. And the fountain is adorned with various historical figures and scenes related to events like the transatlantic slave trade, the Civil War, and other pivotal moments in U.S. history. And I also think it's fascinating how she manages to create something that highlights the romanticized view on American history and culture, and also at the same time highlight the contradiction and the complexities behind how the nation was built. So she's an extremely talented, and she puts so much thought behind all of her work. she quoted and described her approach as kind of a paranoid hysteria, which showcases the complex emotions and anxieties surrounding her as she's addressing issues of race and identity. And by combining history with present realities, she's able to engage people and in the ongoing impact that history has on our current society, and which her approach not only sheds light on these injustices, but also prompts us to kind of confront our own responsibilities with these discussions. Kara Walker, she places a strong emphasis on storytelling, so everything is telling a story like a folklore. And she does emphasize African American folklore, and she also will combine humor and horror in her narratives, which create an interesting kind of unsettling juxtaposition sometimes. And she'll reinterpret characters from very common folklore, such as the Brer Rabbit. And a connection that I made while I was looking at a lot of her work was I thought of the Grimm Brothers fairy tales, where the original stories are quite dark, and society has turned them into something light and fun and easy to digest, when the original story was actually much more gruesome. And what I think is interesting with Kara Walker's work is that she's taking these really cruel histories that have been made into these folklores that, again, are light, easy to digest, and then she's flipping it one more time on its head and bringing the reality back and showing the cruelty again in those stories. She has had a very big influence on contemporary art. She is, especially on how it addresses issues of race and identity, and she challenges existing discourses, and she pushes boundaries and is always prompting critical conversations about these topics. And by confronting these truths and discussing these histories, and she's continuing to provoke dialogue between people. And I think it's important because her imagery compels us to reflect on our own perceptions and the societal structures that shape our understandings of race and identity, which I think is really cool. She's a remarkable and influential artist whose work resonates deeply today, and addressing these complex issues like race and identity are what set her apart, and her art encourages us to explore these themes further and is prompting critical reflection on our society and our history. And that is a brief rundown of Kara Walker's work, and thank you for listening.